Going on, my friends? This is Daryl Andrews, Coach D, coming to you with a hoodie on in Florida. Tells you it can be a little bit cold here sometime. But just want to take a few moments, not much of your time, to talk about this conversation that many are having around leadership um, in this particular generation in which we live. One thing I understand more than ever now, and I think many of us out here understand completely, is that leadership as we know it has been redefined. It is no longer leadership as usual, leadership the way it was 5 years ago. It's really leadership as it relates to today and what's taking place post pandemic. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I'm going to say this, and hopefully leaders out there who understand leadership, leading people in various capacities, can understand this and maybe apply some of the principles. But uh, leadership today is way more on the people side of things than ever before. And let me explain what I mean. The pandemic itself has made life kind of difficult for a lot of us. A lot of us, we think about 2 years of the trauma that people had to go through and being stuck in their homes and things like that. People say, well, it's over, but it's not. And what I mean by that is, yes, it's over from the actual trauma of the fear of death and all the things that came in the early stages. But what's not over is what it's done to people psychologically. And so you can see that in the significant increase in depression rates, trauma, things of that nature. So the reality is that people today are probably a little bit more sensitive to things than people in the past. And that's because we're still carrying the weight of the trauma that took place during those few years. That some may have gotten over, but many have not. We're still, even to this day, still, cautious of catching COVID and not, allowing it to dominate our lives like it had in the past. So what are a few things you need to think about being a post-pandemic leader? All right. I'm gonna give you just two things. I'm not gonna give you a lot. We'll talk about it more over some other time. The post-pandemic leader today needs to be a better listener. The days of just reacting and responding the way we've always reacted and responded aren't going to work with this generation of workers. Now, I've been in workforce development for 20 something years, and trust me, if anybody knows about the worker, I do, because we studied this to the thousandth degree as a contractor and a consultant. But today, people are not going to tolerate the way that's not how it works now. Now, some people might, depending on the individual. But the reality is the majority of people today, when they're saying something or they're asking a question or whatever, they really just want a good response. Sometimes we're in the midst of doing things, or we may have a pressure deadline that's taking place, or we have to get certain work done. We can no longer just respond and react because, let's say in that moment, I'm frustrated because of something else and I just respond to my employee. No, what I need to do is take some time and listen. Hear what the person is saying, okay? And respond, all right, with the person in mind. Great leaders today master that art, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that the leader now has become a pawn in the employee's chess game. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, in order to retain people today, you need to be a good listener. Because if not, then people are going to, probably be offended or frustrated. And then you look up and that person could have ultimately be gone. So listening is one of the qualifications, one of the traits post-pandemic. And then another one is, I'm just going to give you two, like I said, just two, is humility. And so the reality is this. Here's the reality. The reality is, if we have more humility, way more humility than we've had in the past, what'll happen is that people will see how real you are and how significant you are to them, because you care about them, because you're willing to humble yourself. Now, I'm a leader myself, and I lead people. I've led organizations. And the reality is that if there's anything that seems to to impact people in a positive way, it's humility. It's the ability to be humble and say, you know what, even sometimes I'm wrong. A lot of times leaders don't like to say that, but then sometimes leaders, hey, I'm wrong. And what does that do? Well, it reshapes the relationship, okay, that people have when they with their leader. Because they don't see their leader as somebody that's lording over them. They see their leader as someone that cares about them. So keep those two things in mind for post-pandemic leadership. You got to be a better listener, and you got to have some look at having more humility. And I think what will happen is you'll still be able to accomplish what it is you're looking to accomplish as a leader, but you're just doing it in a more of a people-focused way than in the past. I mean, I've seen them all. I've had leaders in my face screaming, and I have leaders in my face saying, you know what, I need you to do this. Let me tell you how this needs to be done. I'll tell you every single time, without reservation, the leader that explains themselves to me, that gives me some clarity, and right there with me, I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna do whatever I need to do. But that leader that's screaming at me in my face, guess what? You just lost me. And it's gonna be very difficult for you to recover me because you just showed me you don't see me as someone worthy of respect. Now, I know that sometimes as leaders, it can be intense, and that's okay. All right. But the point I'm making is if that's my style, that ain't going to work. That's not going to cut it post-pandemic. So that's all I got for you today. You know, Daryl Andrews, Coach D. Any questions, inbox me. But the reality is the post-pandemic leadership is to redefine, all right, what leadership is all about. And if we're not willing to make the adjustments, it's going to be very difficult for us to succeed in recruiting and retaining people in this generation because people just don't have the tolerance to deal with that old style of leadership. That is out the door, my friends. Talk to you later. Take care.